In the beginning was the Word, and it was not in Hebrew, for the Ethiopian language of Ge'ez predates Yiddish by over 6,000 years, considering the Ethiopian calendar began when God created the world in 5500 BCE. Yet still, the Yiddish language of Hebrew began around 1,000 years ago. Some would say in the 9th century. So before looking up anything, I was like, I bet you everything Hebrew will be made after Yiddish began. If not, they're going to make up some false discovery. So let's read. Is Ge'ez older than Hebrew? Ge'ez language is believed by scholars to be over 5,000 years old, making it the oldest of all languages. Not only that, Enoch was the first among men that are born on earth who learn writing and knowledge and wisdom, and who wrote down the signs of heaven according to the order of their months in a book, that men might know the seasons of the years. So Enoch was the very first to write a testament. Yet still, they want you to believe this. And this is inside the Ethiopian Bible. Hence, they added it in. And I opened his mouth and his ears and his lips, and I began to speak with him in Hebrew. In other words, they're lying. In the tongue of the creation. And he took the books of his fathers, and these were written in Hebrew. We all know Enoch was the first, and we all know that the Ge'ez language is way older than Hebrew. Yet still, they want to infiltrate the Ethiopian Bible with lies. So what it says, most authorities believe Yiddish began like in the 10th century. For the past 1,000 years. For the last 1,000 years. So what is Yiddish? Yiddish is the mother tongue of Jewish people. And it began in Central and Eastern Europe. And it was a Germanic language. Hence, Yiddish is 1,000 to 1,100 years old. So what would you find the oldest Hebrew writings? So the oldest Hebrew writings, they say, was in 930 Common Era. Some would say 1,008. Some would say they discovered something, because that's what they do. They always make up some fake discovery. So look it up. The oldest writings were done in 1718 of the Old Testament. That was the first manuscript. And then they discovered something in nowadays Israel in 1963, claiming that they have scrolls written from since 70 Common Era. In other words, they always make up some fake discovery which only they themselves find. So what does it says? Language that King David spoke is probably Hebrew. They don't know, it's just a guess. Hence they want to predate Hebrew, which is Yiddish, to say it's 3,000 years old. Either way, the Ge'ez language is older than that. Yet still, that's a lie, because King David, there's no proof or evidence of King David being here 3,000 years ago. Let's read. Debates concerning David and Solomon have been at the forefront of the biblical archaeology for a long time, when their very existence was called into question. Much effort has been invested in the claim that Solomon and David are not historical figures. The old school biblical archaeologists, this backlash was ludicrous, although no finds can conclusively attribute to the reign of David. In other words, there's no evidence. Many modern day scientists dismiss David and Solomon as mythological figures and believe no kingdom could have existed in the region at the time of the Bible recounted it. And it's not the Bible, it's the Kevin August. It's telling you that they were here 3,000 years ago. Unlike David, there's no universal accepted contemporary inscription or artifact that names him. There's no writing, there's no evidence of him. In the Bible, King Solomon was a wealthy monarch who ruled over Israel about 3,000 years ago. While many scholars today believe he in fact existed, others remain skeptical. Why? Because there's no evidence. Either way, Selassie said in 1962, a new Amharic translation from Ge'ez was printed. Hence, in 1962, Haile Selassie made a 72-book Bible translated only from Ge'ez. Only from Ge'ez, realizing that there ought to be a revision from the original Hebrew and Greek of the existing translation of the Bible. In other words, that Tewahedo Church has an 81-book Bible, adding in the Hebrew and Greek made-up stories. And they're causing confusion. So today, the oldest complete manuscripts of the Book of Enoch are preserved in the Ethiopian Ge'ez language. In other words, Ethiopia was the first. The Watchers, the Parables, Dreams, the Epistles of Enoch translated from the Ethiopian. In other words, Ethiopia is first, not Yiddish. Follow Jah, not man.